Today I'm going to show you what's inside of the Duratec 20 engine and how it works. Now this engine is out of a 2014 Ford Fusion Hybrid and it's got about 290,000 kilometers on it. These Duratec 2-liter 4-cylinder engines are actually a derivative from the Mazda MZR series of engines, and the Ecoboost series that follow this was also a derivative of this design. Taking a look at this engine here, you can see at the top you have a plastic valve cover and a plastic intake manifold. The timing chain cover is made of metal. However, you'll note in front of it there's no serpentine belt or accessory drive system. This here is usually where the alternator would sit. The water pump would usually sit in this area over here. The AC compressor is still here, but it is driven by a high voltage line, which I'll probably take apart in a future video. Let me know in the comment section down below if you want to see that torn down. Now coming across the front here, we do have your drive-by-wire throttle body. However, where the starter would normally sit is a vacuum pump for the brakes, and the water pump, which is electrically driven, is sitting down here. Things are just different on this engine because it fits the hybrid model. I'm going to start this teardown by first removing the wiring harness very carefully using my wire harness removal tool. Just pull off the harness, and then this is the second one. Now the vacuum hoses that Ford's using are these quick connects where you just kind of click it on, and then you just press the tab and bring it back up. Easy for service, but I feel like it's going to break. And this is pretty stiff plastic. This is not rubber. And there's things like this where they've crimped it with like a CV axle, so you actually have to cut this to get this out. Alright, next up I'm going to work on this AC compressor. I'm going to remove this line. And then we'll get the compressor itself out. Alright, I'm going to remove this coolant inlet. Alright, let's see how much coolant is in the system. That was really intense. And that's just a passageway. There's no thermostat or anything in there. You can see this is kind of normally where the water pump would sit, but instead they've moved it downstream to the bottom of this hose. Now they've located the electric water pump down underneath here. There's a couple of tins to take it out, and a giant electric plug because it's high current. Alright, let's pull that out. For some reason I thought there'd be a water passage going into the engine, but this basically forms your coolant circuit. Now can I get the AC compressor off? Maybe we'll save this for another video. Next up, we're going to remove this intake manifold. There's a bunch of 10mm bolts. This vacuum hose here for the PCV. Looking down inside the valves, the back of the valve themselves is clean, and that's only because they use port injection on this engine. Later models, like in the Focus, they use direct injection, and all of this carbon soot actually ends up in the back of the valves and prevents them from operating properly. Now this here is the vacuum pump, and this is the wire going to it. It's very simple, just got to provide vacuum to the brakes. I'm a little surprised they're still using vacuum brakes because on hybrid vehicles they tend to go with an electric actuator. You can see this little cutout over here where on the normal engine block you'd have the starter wheel sticking out here so it can catch the flywheel. However, in the hybrid it uses the transmission motors in order to start the combustion engine, so they've actually filled all this in. And this is the piece here. It's actually made of metal that fills in where that starter would normally bolt up to the same holes. Coming around the back here, it looks like we've got a coolant manifold to remove next. Seems like the lower radiator hose is going to connect up to here. And we have the heater core hook up here. And then of course the coolant goes into the head. Just pull this guy off here. Yeah, it's just a simple coolant passage. There's no thermostat on this one. Now on the exhaust side of the engine, you can see there's this little cutout over here where exhaust gases are going to be sent through the head over here and then back out to this valve over here, which is the EGR valve. That's going to control the amount of exhaust gases that are going to come out this dirty pipe over here to be sucked back into your intake, as if that's any good. I mean, would you be sucking your exhaust gases back into your intake? I don't think so. So let's remove this. EGR valves are very simple, in, out, just like here on the head, in and out. However, they can get clogged because EGR is basically exhaust gases that's prone to a lot of carbon buildup, and then you'll get engine codes and your vehicle will start surging. Moving to the top here, I'm going to remove these coils now. Alright, apologies for the heater noise, but next we're going to be removing the valve cover. There's a bunch of 8mm bolts that go all the way around. So these are actually 9mm. I'm going to gently lift off the valve cover here. Just have to clear this and you can pop this off. Taking a look at the valve train of this Duratec engine, you can see it's actually pretty simple. We got variable valve timing only on the intake side and it's not on the exhaust side. That's because this is the hybrid variant. We do have a very simple valve train with a cam directly acting on the bucket. There's no roller rocker arm system. Now, instead of using spark plug tube seals, they've just integrated that into part of the spark plug gasket itself. We do have a coolant temperature sensor right in the middle here. And on the valve cover we have the intake cam sensor. And we don't need an exhaust cam sensor because it doesn't have variable valve time. You can actually see part of this casting here. This is where the exhaust variable valve timing solenoid would plug into. This is what the intake side looks like. If you change the timing cover, the exhaust gear would have actually fit here. Very similar to the other 2 liters used in the Ford Focus. Next up, I'm going to remove this engine mount. It's okay guys, one day I'll do a video on engine mounts. I've got a whole bunch of my shit waiting on me there. Next up we come to the crank bolt. Now I'd already knocked this free before I put it on the stand, but one of the biggest gripes we have about this engine is that this crank pulley is not keyed. As soon as this thing's loose, it loses all its tension, and if you had a serpentine belt on here, it'd be slipping, but in this case this is just a harmonic balancer to balance the engine, and you can pull it off just like that. See, no key. In order to actually time this engine, you have to put a bolt in from the side over here and get some cam lockers up at the top here, and then put the chain on accordingly. So I'm going to work on the timing chain cover next. So remove all the 8s going around here. There's another big one here. Now happily there's no bolts going into the oil pan from the bottom. So I'm going to see if I can pry this off from the top here. Oh, there's your timing chain cover. Looking at the timing chain setup in this engine is very straightforward. Just got the crank going straight to the camshaft, exhaust and intake, then back down again. It does use plastic guides, which I don't usually like. At the bottom here we do have an auxiliary chain that goes to the oil pump at the bottom. I'm gonna knock the oil pump, oh, it's a tin. I'm gonna knock off the 2 bolts holding the cam gears on. Oh wow, that went flying. Next let me get the timing chain tensioner. As you can see, it's very oily and it's got the oil passage here, which means that this is a hydraulic tensioner. I'm going to remove the chain slide next. And here you can see it's all made of plastic. Not my favorite. Take off this chain slide. This one is very simple, spring loaded. And if I pull off this washer from the crank, you can see you take off the one from the oil pump and the crank gear comes out. And what I wanted to note here is that this crank gear does not have anything locking it to the crankshaft. It's just free to turn, which means that it's just this wave washer here and the tension of that crank bolt that holds everything in time. Now there's no bolts holding this tensioner side on, it just comes off. Just remove this cam gear. This is the variable valve timing gear. If you want to learn more about how VVT works, make sure you check out my video linked above. Next up I'm going to remove this intake side variable valve timing solenoid. Here you can see the solenoid just like other oil control valves. Now interestingly, you do have to remove the valve cover in order to get the solenoid out if you got to do a diagnostic. And it does have this seal on it. Oops, I missed. And on this side where it's missing, they just have this little cover. It's like a fake VVT solenoid. Next I'm going to crack off the cam caps. These are 10 mils. Now this block over here is for the variable valve timing system. So you can see these here are the oil passages that are going to be sending oil through the camshaft over here into that gear that was sitting here. Let me see if we can inspect these. For a higher mileage engine, these cam caps look pretty good. In fact, the failure mode that condemned this vehicle was the transmission bearings, which you're going to see a teardown video on very soon. Now I'm going to remove these cams. Needs a little bit of encouragement. Used to think it's Friday afternoon already. Now this engine uses a very simple bucket design. This is what the bucket looks like. And in order to do a valve adjustment, you'd either have to shim that or change the entire bucket. Now unlike roller rocker arm systems that have hydraulic valves, this one's very simple and it doesn't have that, but that also means you have to do manual valve adjustments, especially when the engine gets old and starts clacking a lot at the top end. Now the head bolts on these are T55 Torx. At least there's not a special tool like an Audi. Alright, now I'm going to pull the head off and let's see how much mess we're going to make. Gonna kill the head gasket there. Now this head gasket is multi-layer steel, the other one's stuck to the head. Surprise, surprise, this is not a completely open deck design. There's actually reinforcements in between here. That's going to make for a very strong block. And that's why some of the Ecoboost engines, like the ones from the ST, also use this design because it holds a lot of power. By the way, the Ecoboost is a completely different story with its own failure modes. If you want to check that out, I've got a video linked above. Those things fail way too often. Looking inside the combustion chamber, everything was very simple and very straightforward. Now at the top here we do have this PCV contraption. At the bottom of the sump you've got those connecting rods moving around splashing oil everywhere, and in addition you've got these pistons pumping air up and down, so you've got some pressure built up inside the bottom of the sump and you need to ventilate it somehow. And that's where the positive crankcase ventilation system comes in to separate that oily air and send it, you guessed it, straight back into your intake to get reburned. And if you don't maintain it, your intake is going to get clogged up with this gunk. Pop off these 8 mils. Oh, that's crusty. Now looking inside this contraption, essentially it's just an air oil separator with a bunch of baffles in here. The air pressure comes in from the bottom here. As it travels through these baffles, it's supposed to condense the oil and send it back down. However, not all of that happens and a lot of oil ends up in the air intake. Now this here is the ventilating valve that you should change out periodically or clean it out. It's got a little check ball in there to supposedly make sure no oil enters and just air passes out. Now if your PCV system is clogged, it's just going to shoot that oil straight into the air intake, but more importantly, it's going to start building up pressure and that's going to blow out seals, especially your rear main seal, which is very expensive to replace. Alright, I'm going to pull off this oil filter next. Certified oil filters. This is basically from Canadian Tire, your basement basic filter. This is still uses a canister style and not a cartridge style, which is more mess. Oil filter bolts up to this little piece here, which is not a 13. In fact, it's just a crusty 10. Basically, it's just oil in and oil out. I've never seen passages so big though. I wonder how the oil pressure stays consistent on this thing. I'm just going to remove this bracket for the AC. Another interesting thing on the hybrid is that this is a block-off plate for where the thermostat would live. It's exactly like where the thermostat would sit inside of here. Now the reason this doesn't have a thermostat is it has an electric water pump. So instead of having the mechanical water pump here always running and then a thermostat to control it, you could just turn on and off the electric water pump as needed. Once again, ignore my heater noise. It's our first day below zero, plus there's a pretty bad wind chill outside. So I'm just hanging out here in my new shop, aka my garage. Just gonna remove this oil pan, which is made of aluminum. Now it's not stamped steel like the older designs, but at least it's before Ford switched to plastic oil pan. It's a lot stronger and better. I'm gonna remove all the 10mm bolts going around. Looking under the oil pan, you can see there's a bit of carbon buildup typical for a high mileage engine, but nothing astonishing. There's a baffle under here, so let's take this off. Harbor Freight strikes again. I've got a 7mm socket for this one. I rarely use my 1/4" drive socket. We'll just pull that off there. Nothing interesting here, just more of that old oily deposit and a bit of sludge. Looking under the engine here, you can see we've got a plastic pickup tube. Don't usually like that because if your engine blows, it's going to cut this pickup tube. No, I'm just kidding. If your engine blows, you got more to worry about. There's two 8mm bolts that hold it to the oil pump. The screen filters inside of here. I don't notice any chunks or anything in there. A couple of 10mm holding the oil pump on. And there's the oil pump. Very simple drive in the front. Sucks it in this way. Pushes it back through the block over here. Down that way where we have the oil filter. Alright, next up I'm going to remove the connecting rods. These are an E-Torx 12mm. Next I'm going to remove these 15mm nuts. Now if you see, this entire thing here is a ladder cage as opposed to just bolting it directly to the block, which makes the bottom end nice and strong. Alright, full battery. Let's try that again. Now you do have to get the rear main seal off in order to get the crank out, which I forgot to take out these bolts too. I haven't used this ratchet in a very long time. I only use it when working on cars. And believe me, I don't really work on my cars because they're Toyotas. Looks like we're going old school here and just using a ratchet. You can see the main bearings are actually intact. It actually looks like a very newish engine, even though it has higher mileage. It's got a bit of heft to it, but it is made of aluminum, so it's not super heavy. Connecting rod bearings look in good shape. They do show a little bit of wear, but that's normal for this used engine. This engine wasn't really known to eat bearings, at least until it became the Ecoboost. Taking a look at the pistons and connecting rod on this engine, things are actually pretty hefty, especially for a little 2-liter engine that's not turbocharged. Now you do have to remember that these engines are hybrid engines, so they're not really working half the time, as they try to remain on EV mode mostly for efficiency. Taking a look at the rings inside of here, here's where you can see a little bit of carbon starting to build up on the oil control ring. That's present on all 4 of these cylinders, and that's where you can start to see things like oil and carbon build up. And that's because as that piston is moving down, instead of that oil getting trapped inside of that oil control ring, it ends up on top and starts burning. And if you got a clogged PCV system, that's not going to help either. Looks like the wrist pin on this one's got arthritis. It's really stiff. Now the rear main seal is kind of in the way from removing the crank, so I got to get the stand off of it first. Whew! Definitely heavier than a Subaru. I mean, rightfully so. The Subaru cranks are much thinner. I'm going to remove this rear main seal now. There's the rear main seal. This one's dry, but of course if your PCV system is leaking, it's going to blow this seal out. If you got the transmission hooked up to here, in order to change the seal, you pretty much got to pull out the transmission and the subframe to get at it. Now I'm going to pull out the crankshaft. So now that we've got everything apart, let's take a closer look at how the lubrication system works. This is the oil pump, and as we saw earlier, it's driven off of the chain. It's going to suck oil from the oil pan and send it through this galley over here, straight down the length of the block. Open up this oil pump here so we can see what's inside. Pull this out, you can see it's a gear style oil pump. So you can see as the shaft rotates around here, oil is going to be squeezed in between these gears and then pushed out through the outlet at the back of this case. Now the filter assembly's got 1 inlet and 1 outlet and an oil pressure switch. Now that filtered oil is then going to be sent down over here to the main oil galley running along the length of the block here, and these holes in the main bearings are drilled down to tap into that oil source to lubricate the main bearings, the connecting rod bearings, as well as the pistons and the piston walls. You'll notice that in this version of the engine there's no oil squirters attached to the main galley to spray the cylinders with oil. Instead, it relies on this little slot over here to share some of the oil from the connecting rod up into the cylinder to spray it with oil. Now on the timing side, that main oil galley is going to tee off to feed the hydraulic tensioner for the timing chain setup, and it's also going to tee off to feed the head here with oil for lubrication and the variable valve timing system. Crankshaft on this feels very strong and durable. Very simple oiling system here, like any other 4-cylinder engine, where we have the main oil coming in through here, and then we have the connecting rod bearings that are drilled into that to tap into that oil source. You've also got these giant weights here on the ends and in the middle, because like any other 4-cylinder engine, it's known for vibrations, so they put this to help cancel those out. Moving over to the bottom of the head here, you can see this is the hole where the oil is going to be sent up to lubricate things. We do have a multi-layer steel gasket and a semi-closed block design on the block itself, which matches up with all the holes here to share coolant between the two. It's a very simple design with 4 valves per cylinder. Looking at the front here, you'll see that that oil galley comes up here and tees across, where it's going to feed these bearings over here, as well as the variable valve timing system that sits on top of here. Now there are oil galleys that run along the length of the head here, and you can see these holes here tap into it to lubricate the camshaft bearing. And at the top here is where your VVT supply line is going to sit. Seems like this head is very similar to the normal Duratec engine with both variable valve timing. There's no real difference between the two other than the plate that sits on top of it. This here is the electric water pump. They use this instead of mechanical ones on hybrid vehicles because it's a lot easier to control the engine's temperature with the whole on-off cycling thing that hybrid engines do. All they have to do is apply 12 volts here, and it circles the cooling throughout the system, and you don't need a mechanical thermostat. Now if you look inside of there, you can see there's like an impeller that looks like a turbocharger. The shape of it is kind of like a turbocharger. So let me know if you want me to make a separate video on cutting this thing apart to see how it works. Now this here is the vacuum pump. Because hybrid vehicles don't always have the internal combustion engine on, there is nothing to create vacuum in order to operate the brake booster. So essentially air is going to be sucked through here to create that vacuum. And you can see the air outlet is over here. We have a giant electric motor that you'd connect 12 volts to make this run. Now this is all held together with plastic rivets. So I wonder if we can... Looks like there's a giant circle in here. Just looks like a diaphragm. This just looks like a filter. Looks like there's another diaphragm at the back here. Okay, I'm going to remove this case here. Check out how this vacuum pump works. Essentially, you've got an electric motor driven by 12 volts here, and it's going to spin this eccentric shaft in the middle here, which has got this weight on one side. Now as it moves, you can see it's on the in-stroke here, and that seals off the diaphragm. And then as you move it back to the outside here, it opens it back up for air to let in. Kind of like clapping your hands back and forth, and that's what's going to generate that vacuum through here, so it can feed the brake booster. Then of course the output to that is this vent here, which sits on the front. And that's a look at the Duratec 20 from Ford. Now as expected for a hybrid engine, even though it's a high mileage, it's actually in pretty good shape. These engines are not known for any major mechanical failure. And let me know what you guys think about making videos in the garage. It's kind of my setup in the winter, although I've always made it outdoors for the lighting. Make sure you subscribe if you want to see more videos, just like this one.